What happened in that packed town hall meeting 3 years ago should have destroyed everything Rachel Hayes cared about. Instead, it became the moment that changed everything, not just for her, but for the woman who thought she could crush a nobody librarian. The Millbrook Public Library sat like a gentle grandmother on Main Street, with its red brick walls and arched windows that had watched over the town for nearly a century. Inside, between shelves that smelled of old paper and fresh possibilities, Rachel Hayes moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who found peace in order. At 38, Rachel had the kind of understated presence that most people overlooked. Auburn hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wire-rimmed glasses, cardigans in soft colors. She spoke in measured tones, smiled warmly at patrons, and never raised her voice, even when dealing with the most difficult visitors. Which made it all the more shocking when Veronica Worthington decided to make her a target. Veronica arrived in Millbrook like a storm system, expensive, disruptive, and impossible to ignore. Her development company, Worthington Enterprises, had already transformed 3 small towns into what she called modern retail destinations, what everyone else called the death of Main Street. The first town hall meeting was packed tighter than a sardine can. Every folding chair was occupied, and people lined the walls 3 deep. Mayor James Frau sat behind a desk that looked too small for the weight of the decision before him. Veronica commanded the room from the moment she stood. Blonde hair in a perfect bob, designer suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and the kind of confidence that came from never hearing the word no. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to getting her way. "I'm here to offer Millbrook an incredible opportunity. A $40 million investment that will bring jobs, revenue, and relevance to your community." She clicked through a presentation filled with glossy renderings of glass storefronts and paved parking lots. The Millbrook Town Center will feature premium retail, dining, and entertainment options. We're talking about transforming this entire downtown corridor into something that attracts visitors from across the state. Dorothy Reynolds, 73 and sharp as a tack, raised her weathered hand. "What about the library?" Veronica's smile never wavered, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. "Miss Reynolds, isn't it?" Veronica's tone grew patronizing. "I understand change can be difficult, especially for older residents, but we have to think practically. How many people really use a full library anymore? Everything's digital now." Rachel felt something tighten in her chest, but she remained perfectly still in her chair, 3 rows back. Mayor Frau cleared his throat. "Miss Worthington, the library serves over 3,000 active patrons. That's nearly half our population." Veronica waved dismissively. "Numbers on paper don't reflect reality, Mr. Mayor. I've done my research. Small-town libraries like this are essentially subsidized social clubs for people who don't want to adapt to modern technology." The room stirred with uncomfortable murmurs. Rachel's hands remained folded in her lap, but her knuckles had gone white. "Furthermore," Veronica continued, warming to her theme, "maintaining that old building is a drain on your municipal budget. Do you know how much money you'll save by not having to heat, cool, and staff a facility that's outlived its usefulness?" Dorothy stood up, her cane tapping against the floor. "That library has been the heart of this community for 97 years. It's where children learn to love reading, where people come when they need help with job applications, where—" "Ma'am," Veronica's voice cut through Dorothy's words like a blade. "I admire your nostalgia. I really do. But sentiment doesn't pay bills or create jobs. This town needs to decide whether it wants to live in the past or embrace the future. That's when Rachel Hayes stood up. The room fell silent. In 3 years of town meetings, budget hearings, and community forums, most people had never heard Rachel speak publicly. She was the quiet woman who stamped their books, helped their kids with homework, and somehow always knew exactly which novel would make them forget their troubles for a few hours. "Ms. Worthington," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying to every corner of the room, "may I ask what research you conducted on our library usage?" Veronica's perfectly plucked eyebrows arched slightly. "I'm sorry, and you are?" "Rachel Hayes. I'm the head librarian." A smile spread across Veronica's face, not warm but predatory. Here was an opportunity she hadn't expected. "Ms. Hayes, I appreciate your dedication to your job. I'm sure you do wonderful work organizing books and whatever else it is librarians do these days." A few people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Rachel remained perfectly still. "But let's be honest," Veronica continued, her voice gaining momentum like a freight train. "This position exists because this town hasn't had the courage to make tough decisions. In the real world, the business world, we call that dead weight." Rachel's expression didn't change. She simply nodded slightly, as if considering the words. "I've built a career on maximizing underutilized assets, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that maintaining a full-service library in a town this size is economically indefensible. You might mean well, but good intentions don't create value." The room had gone so quiet you could hear the old building's heating system cycling on. "I understand your concerns about the community programs," Veronica said, her tone softening to what she probably thought was compassion. "But honestly, how much impact can one small-town librarian really have? You're talking about preserving a system that serves maybe a few dozen regular users, when we could be creating something that benefits everyone." Rachel stood there for a long moment, her hands clasped in front of her, processing the attack with the same calm attention she gave to every patron who approached her desk. "I see," she said finally. "Thank you for explaining your position." And then she sat down. That was it. No heated rebuttal, no passionate defense, no dramatic speech about the importance of libraries in American democracy. Just 4 words and a return to her seat. Veronica looked almost disappointed. She'd loaded her guns for a battle, and her opponent had simply absorbed the shots. "Well then," Veronica said, addressing the room again, "I think we can all agree that progress requires difficult choices. I'll be submitting my formal proposal to the City Council next week." The meeting broke up in clusters of worried conversation. People approached Rachel to offer support, but she just smiled graciously and thanked them for coming. No anger, no tears, no calls to action. Dorothy Reynolds waited until most of the crowd had cleared before making her way over to Rachel's chair. "Honey," she said, her voice gentle but fierce, "I've known you since you came back to Millbrook 5 years ago. I know there's more to your story than what most folks see. Don't let that woman destroy something you love without a fight." Rachel looked up at Dorothy's weathered face, seeing decades of quiet strength there. Some fights are won in ways people don't expect. 3 weeks later, Veronica Worthington received a call from her head attorney. "We have a problem," Michael Brennan said, without preamble. A big one. Veronica was in her downtown office, reviewing architectural plans for the Millbrook project. Construction was set to begin in 2 months, pending final approval from the Environmental Impact Board. "What kind of problem?" she asked, not looking up from her desk. "The kind that could shut down the entire Millbrook development and potentially 3 other projects we have in the pipeline." Now she looked up. Michael Brennan didn't panic. In 15 years of handling her legal affairs, she'd never heard this particular tone in his voice. "Explain." That's the interesting part. The paperwork shows it came from something called the Millbrook Community Preservation Alliance. But when I tried to contact them, the address listed is just a P.O. box. "Then find out who's behind it." "I did." Michael paused. "It's the librarian." The silence stretched so long that Michael wondered if the call had dropped. "The what?" "Rachel Hayes, the woman you debated at the town meeting. She's the sole officer of the Millbrook Community Preservation Alliance, incorporated 2 weeks ago." Veronica laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "The librarian filed some paperwork to slow us down? Michael, you're scaring me over a nuisance complaint from someone who probably Googled how to stop development project." "Veronica," Michael's voice was deadly serious, "this isn't some amateur hour protest. These filings are surgical. Whoever prepared them knows environmental law, municipal finance, and historical preservation regulations better than our own specialists." "That's impossible." "I've been reviewing the documents for 6 hours. She found an endangered beetle species on the property that our environmental consultants missed. She discovered that the building we want to demolish has historical significance that was never properly documented. And she identified tax code violations in our incentive package that could trigger federal investigations." Veronica set down her pen with deliberate care. "Get me everything you can on Rachel Hayes." "Already working on it." "But Veronica, if even half of these challenges hold up in court, we're looking at 18 months of delays minimum, maybe more." 2 days later, Michael called back. "I found something you need to hear," he said. "Go." Rachel Hayes didn't start her career as a librarian. She spent 12 years at Morrison Ketchum and Associates in Chicago. "Doing what?" "She was a senior associate specializing in municipal development challenges. Her track record shows she's successfully blocked or delayed over 40 major development projects." The phone slipped slightly in Veronica's hand. "Doing what?" "She was a senior associate specializing in municipal development challenges. Her track record shows she's successfully blocked or delayed over 40 major development projects." The phone slipped slightly in Veronica's hand. "Why the hell didn't our background check catch this?" "Because she's been living as a librarian for 5 years. No legal practice, no consulting work, no public records connecting her to her previous career. She really did disappear into small-town life." "Until I pissed her off." "Until you called her dev weight in front of her entire community." Veronica stared out her office window at the Chicago skyline, processing the magnitude of her mistake. "What are our options?"
"Settlement. Full withdrawal. Maybe she'll be satisfied with saving the library. And if she's not satisfied with that?" Michael's sigh carried through the phone line. "Then we're about to learn why they called her the project killer." 6 months later, Rachel Hayes sat in her small office behind the library's main desk, reviewing the final court documents that had just arrived by certified mail. The Millbrook Public Library would not only remain in its current location, but would receive a $2 million grant for renovations and expansion. The money came from penalties Worthington Enterprises had paid for environmental violations discovered during the legal review process.
Outside her office, the library hummed with its usual quiet activity. Children sprawled on colorful rugs during story time. High school students clustered around computers working on assignments. Dorothy Reynolds sat in her favorite armchair, helping a young mother navigate online job applications. Rachel heard familiar footsteps approaching her desk and looked up to see Dorothy holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," Dorothy said, setting 1 cup down with a knowing smile. Rachel accepted the coffee gratefully. "Thank you." "Heard from James that the Worthington Woman's Company is filing for bankruptcy protection? Something about multiple projects falling through due to legal challenges?" Rachel took a sip of coffee and said nothing. "Funny thing," Dorothy continued, settling into the chair across from Rachel's desk. "Word is that communities all across the state are suddenly discovering environmental problems and historical preservation issues with development projects. Almost like someone's been sharing information about how to properly research these things." Rachel's expression remained perfectly neutral. "Community preservation is important work." "Indeed it is, though I suspect some folks might be surprised to learn that our quiet little librarian has been so, um, educational to other communities facing similar challenges." Through the large windows, Rachel could see Main Street bustling with its usual afternoon traffic. The antique shops, family-owned restaurants, and small businesses that made Millbrook special continued their daily rhythm. "You know," Dorothy said thoughtfully, "Veronica Worthington made one crucial mistake that day at the town meeting." "What's that?" "She assumed that quiet meant powerless. Some of us who've lived a little longer know better. The most dangerous people are often the ones who choose their battles carefully." After Dorothy returned to her chair in the main reading area, Rachel sat alone in her office, surrounded by books and the gentle sounds of a community space being used exactly as it should be. Her phone buzzed with the text message from another small-town librarian 3 counties over, asking for advice about a development company trying to buy their historic downtown. Rachel smiled as she began typing her response. Some people, she reflected, never learned that knowledge was the most powerful weapon of all. And librarians, well, they were in the business of sharing knowledge with anyone who needed it. The afternoon sun streamed through the old building's windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny possibilities in the air. In 2 hours, Rachel would lock up for the day and head home to her small house with its garden and quiet evenings. But tomorrow, she'd be back at her desk, ready to answer questions, solve problems, and protect the things that mattered most. After all, that's what librarians do.